Hello, I'm Dr. Steve Hassan with my live stream, April 16th, 2025. Thanks so much for joining me. So much is going on, and all I can say is we're still doing our podcast. We have Alexandra Stain, who's a social psychologist, out this week talking about authoritarianism and attachment. But I value these live streams because I can talk about news things and interact with all of the folks who are able to join us. So a few key things I want to talk about: the extreme tariffs, which every economist says is a really bad idea, and $11 trillion lost by the stock market. Some of that's been recouped, but it created international uncertainty, confusion, and certainly distrust in the United States administration. So Wall Street didn't like it. Musk didn't like it. And so they pulled back somewhat. And then there was some pulling back with China tariffs with electronics like Apple phones. So it's such a mess. And really, part of what's happening is just intentional chaos and deconstruction of the United States of America by a foreign hostile power. We have whistleblowers talking about Musk, who went in to our most sensitive computers and with ignoring protocols for security like logging and an IP address directly to Russia. So now we can rest assured that Musk is in bed with Vladimir Putin, doing dastardly deeds. He is certainly not supporting America and American values and is pushing things. I saw a whistleblower about Mark Zuckerberg, who is learning Mandarin and doing secret trips to China, who apparently was lying to the Congress about his relationship with China. So we're learning more. We still have some functioning media. The Trump White House has banned the Associated Press and other wire services. Associated Press is one of the most fact-driven, independent news sources. And part of that was because they refused to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, apparently. So that's really bad. And then one of the things that tops my list of concerning things is the deportation of a survivor of El Salvadorian gangs who came to the U.S., who was deported improperly to El Salvador. The Supreme Court 9-0 said that they had to return this man to the United States. And the president of El Salvador said, I can't smuggle a terrorist back into the U.S. Ha, 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 ha. Which is just a major terrorization technique of the Trump cult to say, hey, if you get out of line, you could be taken into custody, put on a transport plane, and put in a terrorist prison for the rest of your life. And all I can say is this is chilling and very upsetting. And then the last piece of good news was that the letter to Harvard University was basically saying they wanted control over the curriculum and hiring of Harvard, and Harvard said no. And because I guess they have a $50 billion endowment, the $2 billion a year support, I guess, for research from the federal government that is being threatened to take away is in jeopardy. But folks, we are living in unprecedented times. All I can say is We need to message to folks who are exiting the belief that Trump is good for America, who realize they didn't want to be taken over by Russia, to put pressure on their own congresspeople and senators to put into place stopping the tariffs, because there is no emergency other than the self-created emergency that Donald Trump made, and to try to have some checks and balances, because the courts are telling the Trump administration what they need to do, and the Trump administration is going, tough, we're going to do what we feel like doing. And it's very concerning. So those are few of my opening points. I can just say that I am continuing to work on my guidebook for how to talk to friends and family in MAGA. I've been very, very busy, and I'm definitely open to your questions. Oh, and we're going to be developing my YouTube channel as well, offering more premium content, private live streams and things in weeks ahead. So I'm excited about that. And I interviewed Lev Parnas this week, so look forward to getting the blog written up and putting that out in the coming weeks. So very exciting. And yes, I was on Ukrainian television. So that was really, really great. We have the link now. And oh, yes, and I did want to encourage people to look at the TED Talk by the Guardian journalist, Carol Codweiler. Did a great TED Talk in Vancouver. And we'll put up a link to that 17-minute summary of her work since she first outed the Cambridge Analytica hack of Facebook, and how there is a digital coup taking place. Okay, let's get to some of the questions. Do you know about the Dark Enlightenment movement Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance are a part of? Yes, I do. And Network State is a book connected to this. And it's all a version of a apocalyptic but high-tech version of the tech bros. And if you haven't listened to my interview with Greg Epstein, the Harvard MIT humanist chaplain who wrote Tech Agnostic, I really recommend that. It was published by MIT Press about these tech billionaires and their ideology that includes transhumanism, long-termism, accelerationism, and crypto. And we've already heard Trump talking about how he wants to make crypto, America, the crypto capital of the world. And for those of you who've been following me for years, I've been talking about crypto being like an MLM, a multi-level marketing cult, where somebody at the top creates a thing, and then they sucker people into spending large amounts of money. So the people at the top of the pyramid make a fortune, and everyone else loses money. So those are some thoughts on that. We will be producing more content about Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and Zuckerberg and this AI centered, tech centered enlightenment that they're working on. Let's see, Dr. H, please address the cult of Trump in Congress. He's destroying our economy, violating human rights, and obviously compromising our national security. Why haven't the Republicans turned on him? No kidding. But I would say I've reached out to Democrats in Congress, and they're not doing more than just reacting to one extreme thing after another. And this is a overload technique that they're doing. And regarding Republicans, many of them have been bought off. blackmailed. I don't know how many have ideologically joined in with Trump and Russia. I do worry about the Christian dominionists and Christian nationalists being part of the Russian Project Russia coup that's been discussed and planned for many, many decades. But I'm telling you, there are many people who are leaving the belief that Trump is good for America, are regretting their vote. And we need to embrace these folks, and instead of shaming them or saying things like "we told you so." And we want them to lead the pressure on the GOP politicians in Congress and the Senate, because that's the only hope that I see for stopping this Project 2025 Heritage Foundation Opus Dei takeover. So it's very, very upsetting. And Kathleen, what do you make of the female group Journey to Space? Seems a publicity stunt in support of billionaires. Yeah, it strikes me the same, and we shouldn't leave Jeff Bezos out of the tech bro grouping. We know that he didn't support Kamala Harris in the Washington Post opinion pages. And he, I was disappointed to see the clip with Katy Perry. Katy grew up in an abusive Christian cultic situation, and I shared a UK newspaper photo that was shot of her where she was wearing a T-shirt with the subtitle of my book, Combating Cult Mind Control. It says the #1 best-selling guide for protection, rescue, and recovery from destructive cults. And listening to Katie talk, she referenced another cult group, the Hoffman Process, or the Hoffman Quadrinity Process, a group that I've helped numerous people who've been hurt by that particular cult. Let's see. Sir Crumbly, is the wider media covering anonymous 10 terabyte leak of Russian data? I'm not aware that the wider media is covering anonymous. I do see anonymous posting pretty regularly on X. And just to say publicly, I first learned about anonymous in regards to Scientology cult, because they took on Scientology and encouraged people to protest outside of Scientology orgs around the world wearing Guy Fawkes masks from the movie V. And it really made a difference in a good way to mobilize former Scientologists and people who have family trapped in Scientology. So when I learned about Anonymous's wanting to expose them, I thought it was a great thing. And all I know about Anonymous, it's a group of hackers who used to get off on trolling people, etc. Of course, QAnon started on 4chan, favorite place for Anonymous, went to 8chan, and that's a psyop. And my participation in the TEDx Mid-Atlantic virtual TEDx about dismantling QAnon has been taken off of YouTube as hate speech, which it was not. It was explaining that it's a psyop and was based on alternate reality gaming theory. Anyway, I'm ranting a little bit. Let's get on with the questions. Kristen, where are you hearing about many, many people regretting their vote for Trump? On social media, I'm seeing video after video of people, especially vets, who've been fired from public civil service jobs. Very upset. I've heard from farmers who are counting on USAID money to grow crops, who are very unhappy. And so, and please understand, my experience of the last 49 years with folks in authoritarian cults is that people start letting it doubts in, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they get to a tipping point. And if they're surrounded by true believers, and if they believe they're going to be pounced on by other Trump cult members, they're going to keep quiet longer. But the more contact they have with other people, especially family and friends who interact with them warmly, they're going to feel more safe to share their doubts, and it will open up the gates for mass exodus. And I really think that for all activists, there needs to be much more attention to how to interact effectively with folks in the MAGA cult. And I've done many blogs on this and other past live streams where I've talked about it. Let's see, Michael, Democrats are in a difficult position. The Democrats have to be both a force for a change and also boring bureaucrats that want to keep our Constitution going. Vote blue no matter what, no matter who. Yeah, I see the Supreme Court decision to allow dark money in politics, so-called Citizens United, which is Orwellian speak. It's really about corruption legislation. I just see corruption in politics, and for anyone who is involved with this system, we really need to remake the system. And for the Supreme Court, who say they're literalists and wanting to remain true to the Constitution, they are not honoring that at all by letting Trump be above the law. That decision was absolutely horrible. And we can't forget the Federalist Society, Leonard Leo, and Opus Dei in the Supreme Court. Not good. So we have a lot of work we're going to need to do to preserve human rights, women's rights, gay rights, trans rights, indigenous rights, rights of minority religions. Shannon, where else can we find your piece on QAnon since it was taken off of YouTube? Damn, I wish I had downloaded a copy if I had even thought that it was going to be censored. But unfortunately, I don't have a copy of it. And it's very, very frustrating. And unfortunately, with the kinds of threats against CBS and other media sources, the unfortunate arc of fascism is to have information control, which means that you might see the books that I wrote, including the new workbook, Understanding Cult, you may see them disappear from Amazon or from Barnes & Noble or other bookstores if it becomes a federal crime to read books about brainwashing mind control cults. So all I can say is I'm backing up all of my stuff onto hard drives that are not connected to the internet. And my intention is to keep finding ways to get the word out internationally, because this is a crisis, an epidemic of undue influence around the world. And it's authoritarianism on the left and the right. I mean, people forget China is communist, left, Maoist, left. And there are many other cults that are out there on the left and the right, spewing disinformation, misinformation. And I come back to the theme of freedom of mind. I say it's your mind and only you should control it. And the biggest mind control device of all time is our cell phones. And people need to understand that it needs to be a tool that we use as opposed to it's using us and using our data. And Cami, if you get a chance, or Jerry, to put up the link to Carol Codweiler's TED Talk, that would be awesome, because I really, really, really want to encourage people to watch it and share it, because I think she really nailed it. Let's see. It's Bernie anti-oligarch movement doing the right thing to welcome those leaving MAGA. I'm not sure what Bernie is up to. But if you're saying welcoming those who are leaving MAGA, I'm saying absolutely we should welcome them. Why do I say that? Because I was a frickin' Moonie. I got radicalized. I became a right-wing fascist extremist who wanted to destroy democracy and wanted to put a theocracy into place and destroy the Constitution. I was programmed when I got out of the cult in 1976, thanks to my family, and I started learning about brainwashing and mind control. I had no idea I would have a whole career spanning 5 decades and get 2 masters and a PhD and write books and teach people around the world about hypnosis and mind control. But here I am, and this is a message authoritarian mind controllers do not want me to share. So, and Christine gave a super chat $4.99 saying, keep bravely spreading awareness. I mail your books to my ex-cult patients. It's immensely helpful to them. Thank you. Thank you, Christine. And you remind me to remind you that I have an online course for psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, and counselors, that the workbook that's in my up over that shoulder, Understanding Cults, just came out last week. It's associated with that course. And we have a non-clinicians version, which is less expensive for anyone who wants 9.5 hours foundational knowledge about cult mind control. And you can find those off of my freedomofmind.com website. And next, how do we have grace and not anger towards those coming out of the cult of Trump? Honestly, I recognize why you're angry. I have friends and others who have been trying to argue their loved one out of the cult of Trump, which has only driven them deeper in. And many of these folks have blocked or terminated conversations with their MAGA relatives, or if they're talking with them, they don't talk about politics at all with them. And I'm saying this is, a normal reaction, but it shows a lack of understanding about how the mind can get hacked, how we can get brainwashed, and the fact that people will come out and can return back to who they were before. So the quick answer is, if you understand that this was a social, psychological process done on them, then you won't blame them, and you'll work constructively to help them start reality testing. And if you haven't seen my TEDx, How Can I Know If I've Been Brainwashed? I encourage you to do so. You can find the direct link on my freedomofmind.com site. I believe on the right under press, you should be able to find that. And I also am running a free anonymous survey at bytemodel.com, where anybody can take it anonymous, free, 40 questions, and get a number on the influence continuum of how destructive a group is. It can actually give you a number based on your responses. So give it a shot. And I see this is what a digital coup looks like. Carol Codweiler, TED. Do we have the link that we can put on the screen that people can take a picture of and show, that would be awesome if we can do that. I believe there was a bit.ly short link, Cami, that you made for that one. And people ask me, how do you keep going, Steve? I just feel blessed that I have had 49 years of freedom due to my family's extraordinary efforts to help me and deprogram me. And I feel privileged to be able to not worry about being deported because I'm an immigrant or because I have a green card. I'm very upset if I lose my Social Security check, but I'll survive if I don't have it. Oh, good. There we go. The link. You can take a picture of that for Carol Cadwalladr, TED Talk about the digital coup. So I feel like, I think of the folks who were fighting Russia in Ukraine, and I'm like, I'm sitting in my apartment in Northampton, Massachusetts, warm and comfortable, and I want to help. So I'm going to keep at it. I'm going to keep going as much and as long as I can. Michael, ask your Trumpist acquaintances this when they start spouting their crazy talk. What if the opposite were true? So I think what Michael is getting at is a technique that I talk about in my approach that I outline in my dark blue book, Freedom of Mind, of encouraging a change of perspective as one of the major techniques. Because if you have blind faith, you're lacking perspective. So I think what Michael was trying to get at is asking questions where if things were flipped, how would you feel if it was your brother who was incorrectly picked up and sent to El Salvador, for example? Or how would you feel if it happened to you? Or how would you feel if Obama or Biden did X of what was just happening? But it has to be in a warm context, and you have to be able to listen and interact with the person and not use it as a stick to argue rationally. Let's see. Disco Jack Jr., do you have any advice for forming rainbow coalitions like what occurred in the 60s civil rights? No. I mean, I'm not aware of. I'm really a therapist and a former cult member, and I'm an expert in helping people to exit mind control cults or coaching people on how to help people. I'm not a politician. I'm not a political activist, other than the messaging that I've kind of been forced to do since writing the Cult of Trump book, where I stuck my neck out as a cult expert to say Donald Trump is a malignant narcissist, and that's the stereotypical profile of cult leaders, and therefore he is unfit to run the United States of America. Just on that alone, and was involved with Dr. Bandy Lee's Dangerous Case of Donald Trump work. So I've gotten involved just as a mental health professional, saying this is dangerous. This person is dangerous, not to be trusted. Let's see. Dr. Hassan, would you reconsider doing the Q talks with code words for Q and in smaller bites so you make work for the algorithm to find you? It's going to come up with other keywords. Niraj, it sounds like you know more than I do about the internet and algorithms. And so all I can say is if you have knowledge and concrete advice for my team, I encourage you to email us at center, CENTER, at freedomofmind.com. And we're on a shoestring budget, folks, and that's why I keep asking people to help subscribe and these donations, because I would really like to be doing 100 times more than what I can do, because I've been funding this from my own consultations and the folks that work at freedomofmind.com who do some contracting work for us. We need more resources to message. Robert Jackson, we have friends that we meet weekly and are often discussing how to talk to our Trump friends, how to get them out of the cult slowly. Great. I'm a big fan of building community in real life and helping to teach one another about other cults. If you're not familiar with Robert Lifton's 8 criteria of thought reform or brainwashing, please learn about it. Margaret Singer's 6 conditions. I've written about these. I've interviewed Dr. Lifton, and learn the techniques of the goal is to ask questions in a respectful way, be a good listener, feed back to the person what they said, so make sure that they understand you're really listening, and ask questions that make them stop and think and consider, versus anything that's an attack or a rational, logical assault on them. And believe me, many, many, many people are needed for this, and we need to think about Christians talking to folks in the Christian 7 Mountain Dominionist, Christian nationalist, New Apostolic Reformation churches. We need people who are ex-members of that to train Christians how to interact with folks who think they actually believe they're following Jesus and the Bible, to help them reality test. We need folks who are in the tech world to be doing their thing. We need people from all walks of life to be involved here. Let's see. Can we touch on Maple MAGA cultism? In Canada, we are also trying to fight fascism. So my thesis for the cult of Trump was that Putin was a major puppet master and recruited Donald Trump in the 80s. And everything that he's doing, from dismantling our cybersecurity to Musk going into our computers and sharing the data with Russia, it's affecting Canada too. And I'm hoping that Carney gets elected. I'm hoping that people start realizing that there is World War III going on right now, largely in cyber world, through phones, through algorithms, through platforms, using our data to hack our minds. And we need to spend more time in real life with our friends and families and communities, and less time on online and on social media. And we especially need to be careful to check our sources. I have a person who's an attorney who took a webinar by someone, and she didn't know who this person was, but she took the time to take a whole webinar. And I'm like, why would you spend time with someone that you haven't independently verified as a credible source? Turned out this guy was a MAGA source. We really need to pay attention, just like we need to pay attention. What kind of food are we eating? Are we eating food that's going to cause us to be diabetic? We shouldn't have that if we want to be healthy, right? We need to say no to the commercials that are trying to program us to buy things that are harmful to our bodies and to our minds. Robert says, thank you, doctor. One of my friends suggested it, and pretty much all your suggestions have been discussed, especially showing empathy and not being snarky to them. Yep. And if you ask their opinion about a documentary on a different cult, for example. If you know that they don't like Scientology, show them something, watch it with them, pause it, interact with them, and try to hit on the key points like the bite model things like sleep deprivation, changing clothes, changing diet, regulations, rigid rules and regulations, dependency and obediency, thought stopping, phobia, indoctrination. There are these themes that you can discuss with Chinese communist brainwashing, pimps and traffickers, other cult stories, to make people understand that they look in your life for these elements too. Let's see, Laurel. Yes, I keep spreading the word that there are activism opportunities for every age and personality type. Hashtag do something. Yes, and I really want people to understand that when there's a situation like we're facing, the four principal responses humans make is they fight, they flight, they run away, they freeze, or they fawn, which means they go along with it. And for me, the only viable option is to fight, to be an activist, to add your voice. Don't self-censor yourself. And it's easy for me to say that because that's been my life values, especially since getting out of the Moonies. And I've been threatened and I've been sued and harassed, but I've been doing it knowingly. There's a lot of folks who don't want to be a target, or they don't have a thick skin, where if people start saying bad things, they, are not strong enough or resourceful enough, then don't be public. Be an activist behind the scenes. You get to choose what fits for you. Let's see, Dr. Hassan, when you talk about Dominionism and Christian nationalism, would you include the Seven Mountain Mandate? Absolutely. If so, would you consider them as an association to be concerned about? Absolutely. I wrote about them in the Cult of Trump. So please get a copy from your library if you don't want to buy it or listen to the audiobook. It's not only on Audible, but it's in Google Play. And I believe there are CDs of the audio in libraries if you like listening. And Mark Burnett, by the way, who did the Apprentice show of Donald Trump, was, I'm told, the head of the mountain of media for Lance Wallnew's Seven Mountain Dominionist frame. And these folks want to take over the world. Even though Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world, these folks are basically calling Jesus a liar and saying, nope, we're going to take over the world. And I'm not a Christian, but what my Christian friends would say to them is, beware of false prophets. And even at the end of times, even the elect will be deceived. So beware. Let's see. So many cults are working together in Washington. Yes, that is so true. And George Bush Jr. put in place this international religious foundation stuff. Trump has Paula White in the White House. She speaks in tongues and casts out demons and asks for lots of money because she is into prosperity ministry. And the Moonies are collaborating, the Krishnas, Scientology, Falun Gong, Opus Dei, the New Apostolic Reformation. So there's a whole group of authoritarian cults. And guess what? They don't like my work. They want to say there's no such thing as brainwashing or mind control. And there's no way to tell if a group is brainwashing or mind controlling, which is not true either. So you need to reality test that propaganda, especially if you're a former member who know that your mind was hacked when you were in a cult. Let's see, Sharon, MAGA are very aggressive about discussing how their policies are right and defend them no matter what. Yup. I used to be pretty darn aggressive as a Moonie. And I watched a video of a big guy who was confronting a short woman who was protesting outside of a Tesla dealership. And he had a posture where he was showing his big biceps and his tattoos and talking in an overbearing, loud voice at her. And every question she had or every comeback, he kept controlling the narrative. And what I would do if I was her would be to say, are you interested in a dialogue, a real dialogue that's back and forth and respectful, or do you want to just talk over me? Because if you want to just talk over me or talk at me in a loud voice, I'm not interested. But the key thing whenever you're interacting with people is whoever defines the frame is in control. And so I always want to set the frame and exemplify that I'm willing to change my mind. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to be asked questions and give honest answers. And are you? And that's how I posture myself. And I have the advantage, having been in the Moonies, to rely on that mindset to explain a lot of my positions of why I speak for human rights, for the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and why I'm against malignant narcissists who are fascists, who want to destroy the checks and balances, the separation of church and state, etc. Let's see. It's so hard to be patient with MAGA friends. You have the patience of a saint. It is hard. And that's where I think one needs to understand that it was a process of getting recruited into MAGA. And it's going to be a process to help people exit MAGA and stop setting expectations for yourself that you can have a conversation and win points, and the person's going to go, oh, you're right, Trump's a cult leader. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. But saying, could you help me step into your shoes? I really want to understand. Is there anything Donald Trump could say or do that would make you reconsider whether or not you want to support him or trust him? And then be quiet and wait for an answer. And if the person says no, there's nothing, then say, would you mind if I ask you a few what ifs? And if they say, okay, so what if Donald Trump walked over to you, poured some cyanide into some flavor aid and said, God wants you and I want you to drink this. It will send you to paradise. Would you do it? And typically the person would say, oh, he would never do that. He would never ask me to do that. But then you say, but what if he does? And what you wait. You want them to think about it, because you don't say, but you just said there's nothing that could happen to make you question, right? You don't point to that. You point to the question that's going to provoke some reality testing. Let's see. Trump is the mouthpiece. Musk is the cash. You got Project 25 Vance, Johnson, all manner of disgusting people. How you see people get to the end of it. They're up the game, voter suppression, disobeying courts. I'm not sure what your question is. How you see people get the end of it. we have history that has taught us a lot of lessons. Ruth Ben-Ghiat has spoken, and Richardson, Heather Cox Richardson, and other historians. But what's different about 2025 is we're in the digital age with AI and algorithms and studying neuroscience and real live experiments being done on people's minds. That's where it's different. And that's why we really need high-tech people to be whistleblowers, to talk about protections for our data privacy and regulations for these platforms. And guess what? The owners of the platforms don't want regulation because they want to control the world. So how are we going to stop them? And it's very interesting. Carol Cadwalder in her TED Talk made a point, which I've made previously, that if Musk told Putin that he wants to take over the world and supersede Putin, he will put him in jail forever in Siberia and tell him to sign all the contracts to sign over all of his wealth to him. That will be how Putin deals with Elon Musk's desire to take over the world. If Putin sees Musk as a good lapdog who will do what he's told, and she is probably involved as well, then Musk will be allowed to do his thing in the meantime. We live in interesting times, folks. Let's see. Moving on. Leslie, on your recent podcast, I think you said the United States is a cult. Did I hear that correctly? I don't remember saying the United States is a cult, but it's being taken over by many cults, and in particular, Trump is at the top of the pyramid. Actually, I have a graphic in my book. I don't think I have a copy that I can hold up now from the book, but I have the influencers over Trump over the pyramid. And I want, thank you. There's another graphic from the book, but I don't think we have it ready for today. But the point is that I'm against authoritarian cults, not just cults. Like if you're into backgammon or pickleball or CrossFit or Taylor Swift, that's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about controlling behavior, information, thoughts, and emotions to make pseudo identities that are dependent and obedient on the leader or the ideology or the group. And that's a dissociative disorder. Let's see. How can we overcome this when it seems like 50% of the country is in some sort of a cult? I certainly do not believe 50% of Americans are in some sort of a cult. I don't have any hard statistics, but I can say that I do believe that undue influence is a global public health epidemic. And the solution to epidemics is identifying the virus, and identifying how to inoculate people, how to do education and intervention training for therapists, educators, politicians, and media, and to have recovery resources for people exiting authoritarian groups. And I can also comment that I am aware that people have left a cult that they were born into, never learned about the bite model and the influence continuum, never did their healing therapy work on themselves, and are now in the cult of Trump. So if you happen to know a MAGA person and you know they were in Scientology before, you know they were in the Jehovah's Witnesses or the Mormons before, my encouragement is learn about the Mormons, learn about Scientology, talk to ex-members, and talk to the person first about the cult that they first left and why they left it and what they didn't like about it. get into a discussion with the influence continuum and bite model, and then have conversations about what they're following and why they're following it. Let's see, as an expert on communication and how to communicate effectively and persuasively, do you have any ideas on how to send a strong message to SCOTUS? Not much of an open line of communication. So the Supreme Court, unfortunately, were people who were groomed often from law school through the Federalist Society. And so the six people, the three certainly that were put in place by Donald Trump, are ideologically aligned. How do we communicate with them? We try our best to message to actively online, but I would say if you happen to know any family members or friends, they're the ones who need to get educated and need to, if they have access to these individuals, start asking questions. And if they are Opus Dei extremists who think the Pope is evil, ask them why they believe that. Ask them about the lawsuit of people who were recruited as minors suing Opus Dei for trafficking, human trafficking. Let's see, what's worse, having MAGA friends and family, or having friends, family who look the other way with all that's going on? I don't know how to answer what's worse. I guess what I would say is that it's probably a steeper slope to climb to help family that's into MAGA than people who are wishful thinking or into denial. But I definitely think the same approach is needed, where you have to have warm engagement. And if people say, I can't handle it, I don't want to know what's going on in the news, you can say, well, I'm here if you want to talk about it. I do encourage you not to spend hours looking at news every day, but a few minutes in the morning and a few minutes in the afternoon. Don't do it late at night. You're going to have trouble sleeping. But there's a lot of people who actually are believing we're going to have a 2026 and a 2028 federal election that's run fairly. I have serious doubts about this. I really, really do. Let's see. K Clock. I worry that the congressman from Maryland who is flying to El Salvador today to try to bring back Kilmar might be flying into a Jonestown situation. I support him and hope he is safe and successful. Honestly, I am aware of that congressperson, and I honestly didn't occur to me that the president of El Salvador might be reacting like Jim Jones reacted. I think it's a very different situation. Obviously, I wish him the best of luck. And I think this whole situation where the Supreme Court said, bring this man back, they understand why it was 9-0. They understand if they don't condemn this, anybody can be just scooped up and put on a plane and sent to some detention center, including them, if Trump doesn't like what they're deciding. And again, the courts have no power to enforce the law. That's up to the Department of Justice. And the Pam Bondi and Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel have all sworn allegiance to Donald Trump. So it's very, very concerning. Any thoughts on folks who are aligned with Trump because they're evangelical? Seems like a double mind capture, seems hard to change. I think if people are evangelicals, and especially if they were raised learning about the New Testament and Jesus's teachings, the best people to interact with them are fellow believers who are biblically knowledgeable, to discuss the end times from the point of view of, doesn't the Bible prophesy false prophets? Doesn't the Bible prophesy a great adversary who will deceive the elect? And who do you think that may be? How will we know? And coming back to the core belief of Abrahamic religions, all three, is the notion that Almighty God, however you understand him or her or it, if you look at the Garden of Eden story, Almighty God did not brainwash Adam and Eve to be dependent and obedient. Almighty God, in the grand design, wanted children to have choice, even if it meant to disobey. So how can God, all these years later, change his mind or her mind or its mind and say, yup, it's okay to deceive people and brainwash people to do my will? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Let's see. Do you think all people who support Trump are in that cult? I am of the opinion at this point that anyone who thinks that Trump won the 2020 election, or thinks that January 6th wasn't a violent coup attempt, if they don't understand those 2 points, then they are in the throes of the cult of Trump. That's my opinion. I do not say anyone who voted for Trump is in the cult of Trump, but I do say anyone at 2025 says Trump won the 2020 election and Trump, is, didn't try to overthrow the peaceful transfer of power. They're in the cult of Trump. So we're going to be wrapping up. I want to thank everybody. We got started a couple of minutes late, but I want to thank my team. They're great, and I want to encourage people, come check out my YouTube channel, my Substack, my social media. If you're aware of influencers or know them personally and think that they should have me on their show, that's great. Please propose me as a potential guest. And I will keep doing what I've been doing for 49 years, which is sharing my life story and my expertise in psychology, and wanting to uplift the human species to a healthy, happy future. Let's work together, folks. And if you're not already subscribing to my once a week email that comes out on Tuesday, please sign up for that. And thanks for your support. Have a good day.